woman has never left the house. When she does, she gets dizzy, her ears ring, her limbs twitch, and she even wets her pants. In order to get the woman's stash of money, the robbers forcefully took her outside the house and asked where the money was. Go back to an hour ago. The woman saw through the curtains that 3 fierce men came down from the car, so she hurriedly hid under the table. It wasn't long before the men broke the window and entered the house. She held her breath, not daring to make a sound. It looked as if they were about to leave the living room. Daisy tried to escape, but she didn't expect one of the men to return. She hid under the table again, until the men left without noticing anything unusual. Daisy rose slowly from under the table, but just as she was about to escape, there was the sound of boiling water in the kitchen. Daisy had no choice but to sneak into the kitchen compartment. Luckily, the arriving men didn't see her. However, as Jack turned off the fire, George saw Daisy's clothes. The men began to wonder. The information they'd received was that she'd gone to a funeral, and no one was supposed to be home. But why would there be anything unusual in the house now? So they started to search the house separately. Jack, who was stuck in the kitchen, noticed a cubicle. He reaches in. Daisy had disappeared from the cubicle. By now, she had already made her way to the bedroom on the 2nd floor. Taking advantage of her familiarity with the terrain, George had heard the commotion and was on his way. Daisy's heart trembled. She didn't know what to do. When George pushed open the door and entered, only to find it empty, until he went further into the room, he discovered that there was a utility room, and Daisy was hiding in the corner. George was rummaging around in the utility room. Daisy was too nervous to move, and she was about to be discovered, so she started to run. She ran like crazy, and she was the first to make it to the hall, but just as she stepped outside, she stopped. There was fear in her eyes. The men who were coming after her were puzzled. She had a chance to escape, but stopped where she was. Jack rushed to close the door. Although he didn't know why Daisy had stopped, he knew that the most important thing was to find the money. Jack anxiously asked where the money was, but Daisy remained silent. In desperation, Jack decides to look for it himself. George wondered why Daisy was afraid to go out, so he brought Daisy to the door. However, Daisy was in a very difficult situation. Then she went into a trance. She was crawling on the floor towards the house, but George was blocking her way. At that moment, Jack arrived and held her up. They were on a trip for money. Jack didn't want any trouble. He tried to hold Daisy steady. While she was unconscious, he forcibly asked for the location of her money.